I was so ticked about it. So,
Did you cry? Did you
No,
cry?
I didn't cry. I'm not a crier. I don't cry. I don't cry. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 5 of the Man in Black podcast. I am Josh Mancuso, and this is Todd Blackledge. Todd, how you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Glad to see you made it back from Disney okay.
Made it back in one
Survived?
piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have any money left, but I'm here, and it was quite the experience. And I'm not going to go back for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. So you were, of course, what game were you at this week?
I was at Michigan State. Really, only one team played. That was Michigan. Michigan State had a rough night, 49-0. So.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. We won't even talk about that game because we all know that Michigan's really good and they stomped Michigan State, and it's not even a rivalry anymore. It feels like. It's pretty rough.
Well, yeah. Michigan State won in 2021 when they had Kenneth Walker III, and he had 5 touchdowns. But really, the interesting thing is that was the last game that Michigan has lost in the regular season, and they have dominated since then. And that was kind of a real pivot point for them as a team and a program. So they're really good right now. Of course, there's a lot of controversy swirling around their program right now, but it doesn't seem to be affecting them on the field at this point.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a moment, some of that Michigan controversy. So you guys are listening. Thanks for listening or watching. We're going to do a recap of last week's games, just a few of the top games. Then I got a special segment for Todd that he doesn't know is coming called A Completely Random Collection of Photos. And you'll want to make sure you're seeing that. And then we're going to do our tip of the cap to our team and our player of the week that we think should have a little hats off from Todd and myself. We're going to go over my top 25 and see how poorly I did again this week. We'll discuss Michigan. We'll discuss some upcoming matchups this weekend. And then we got a new segment called Would You Rather? You're not going to want to miss that one. And then finally at the end, we've got questions for Todd. Ask Todd segment. So if you're listening, make sure you send us some questions we can ask Todd. We don't have an Ask Josh segment because nobody cares what I have to say. They only care about what Todd has to say. So, all right, that's our show. Let's get into it. Here we go. Penn State versus Ohio State. Man, I blew that one, Todd. I've been high on Penn State all year long. I thought this is going to be an upset. They're going to go into Columbus. They're going to get this win. It's going to happen. This is the year. It was not the year.
No, it wasn't. And as a Penn Stater, that game being on at noon and not me doing a night game, I got to watch the whole thing. And it was excruciatingly painful for me to watch because it just was not what I thought it was going to be. I kind of thought Ohio State would win, but I thought that we would compete better, Penn State, and they didn't. Now our defense, Penn State's defense played extremely well. And their defense really played good enough to win, but offensively they were very inept. While the game mattered, that last touchdown was just kind of a throwaway thing. Before that, Penn State had about 165 yards, 11 first downs. They were 0 for 15 on third down. They could not do anything offensively. And again, their defense played great. Ohio State's defense played great. And then, when it was all said and done, because neither offense was outstanding, but Ohio State has one guy who's truly outstanding, Marvin Harrison Jr. And for the second year in a row against Penn State, he took over the game. He had 11 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown. And whenever they needed a big play or needed to jumpstart anything, the ball found its way to number 18.
Yeah. He's amazing. He's one of your unicorns, I think, right? From early in the season, we were talking about that. And Drew Aller just could not get – what was it? He was like 11 or I don't know, 16 of 40. I don't know what the stat was.
It was rough. It was well under 50%, which is, but honestly, they put too much on him. His first year as a starting quarterback, he's an Ohio kid going into Columbus, playing in front of an incredibly hostile crowd. And he shouldn't have had to throw the ball 40 sometimes, right? They should have leaned on their running game a little bit more, been more productive running the football. They did not play well offensively. There were a couple questionable coaching decisions. One in particular in the fourth quarter when they chose to go for it on a 4th and 3 from their own territory instead of punting and continuing to play field position and defense, and it came back and bit them because it led to an Ohio State touchdown that kind of put the game out of reach. But hats off to Ohio State. They've got 2 really good wins on their resume now at Notre Dame early in the year, and then this one against a top 10 team in Penn State, and I'll see them with my own eyes again this week when they travel to Madison, Wisconsin to take on the Badgers.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game right there. It was amazing they were able to win that game with only 79 rushing yards, which I expected them to have more there. Of course, like you said, defensive battle. But great game for Ohio State. We'll see what happens with Penn State moving forward. But another big game was Utah at USC. Utah just went right in there, had no problem taking care of USC. Well, that's not true. They did. It was a close game.
Sure.
But I really thought that USC would win that one again. Missed that one. So kind of a last second win there for Utah. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So, there are certain teams around the country where you can clearly see that the team takes on the persona or the personality of the head coach. Utah is one of those places. Kyle Whittingham is a defensive-minded, no-nonsense, blue-collar, tough guy, and that's the way Utah plays. They're good in the trenches. They're physical. They can run the football. They can stuff the run, and that's how they've been able to beat USC. They beat them twice last year, once in the regular season, once in the Pac-12 championship game, and in both cases, they just kind of were better at the fundamental physical parts of the game, blocking and tackling and all those things. This was a close game. They're still playing without Cam Rising, their quarterback, who was ruled now he's going to be out for the whole year. But Bryson Barnes, one of the backup quarterbacks, played extremely well. He threw for 3 touchdowns, and then in their game-winning drive, they converted a 4th and 1, and on the next play, he scrambled for 26 yards and set up a game-winning 38-yard field goal by Cole Becker, and that was the difference in the game. So 2 tough losses in a row for USC. Now, they didn't play as poorly as they did the week before against Notre Dame, but their shot at a national championship, possibly even the Pac-12 championship, is gone as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably gone at this point. And it's Caleb Williams had no touchdown passes in the game, not a single touchdown pass, and that's just shocking coming from the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. But tough one for those guys. USC, I think it won't be the last game they lose this year. I don't believe. We'll see.
And then kind of off the radar, I mean, Utah has been off the radar, right? But they're sitting there right now with 1 loss. They lost to Oregon State. That's the only game they lost, and they're kind of right in position to win, to be in a position to compete to win their 3rd consecutive Pac-12 championship.
That would be incredible. Big deal for them if they're able to pull that off. Speaking of pulling something off, here's one. Virginia goes into Chapel Hill and takes out North Carolina. Yeah. What happened? Virginia, have they won a game all year? I don't know, but they came in, they
won,
beat,
I think, just won.
They beat the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. 228 rushing yards, touchdown there to end that gave them the win. Their first ever road win against a top 10 opponent. Just incredible, exciting for them, but real sad for UNC. I was high on UNC. I mean, I really thought they were going to have a big year, and they've had a good year so far, but man, huge loss to the Cavaliers of Virginia, who I forgot had a football team. Yeah,
that was a really devastating loss for North Carolina. I mean, I think they were like a 24, 25-point favorite in the game. Drake May, he threw for almost 350 yards, but really only completed about 50% of his passes, got picked off late in the game that kind of sealed the win for Virginia. And, I hate it for North Carolina and Mac Brown, but I am very happy for Tony Elliott, the head coach at Virginia. This is his first head coaching job. He was offensive coordinator at Clemson for a long time. Struggled last year. Then they had the tragedy with the shooting that affected the team, affected the campus. Really difficult thing to navigate through as a first-time head coach. Start this year, only won 1 game, heavy underdog on the road, but they come away with a win. And so a great win for Tony Elliott and his coaching staff. And I'm really happy for him because he's a really good man.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and I'm happy for him as well. As a Tennessee fan, I mean, we played Virginia first game, absolutely throttled them, which we thought was going to be how we were going to do all of our games after that. But us Tennessee fans are hoping that helps our strength of schedule rating. Maybe now that Virginia has beat UNC,
That
we'll
they
take.
won their second game.
That's right. We'll take whatever we can get at this point. Speaking of, let's go to that game. Tennessee at Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa. Todd, if I told you that Tennessee would be up 20-7 at halftime, would you have thought they're going to win this game?
Yes and no. Yes, I would have, but that Alabama is just, that's what they're doing this year. They kind of get behind, they make mistakes, they don't look great, and then all of a sudden they kind of get it turned around, and Jalen Milroe makes some plays. And their defense, now I think their defense is legit. This is their Alabama's offense is not what we're used to seeing, particularly at the quarterback position and everything. But their defense is one of the better defenses they've had in the last couple of years. So, they got it figured out, and they were playing at home, which helped them. It would have been much more difficult to overcome a 20-7 halftime deficit if they were playing up in Knoxville. But playing at home, they could get the crowd back into it, and ultimately they swung the game in their favor and won, by a comfortable margin.
Yeah, they did, and I think Nick Saban is certainly a king of a lot of things, but in coaching, but king of halftime adjustments. I feel like just coming out and scoring in 3 plays after they got the ball, coming back out there. Joe Milton having 175 yards, 2 touchdowns in the first half against Alabama on the road. You're thinking, all right, this is it. We've made it, but no, they give up 27 unanswered points to Alabama, and that just goes to show you. I think this Tennessee team is not. This is not last year's team. They don't have. They're not able to take that momentum and run with it or come back when the momentum changes. Last year in Knoxville, they had there was a scoop and score on a snap that happened last year, and that put Tennessee down. They came right back and scored the next drive. This time, scoop and score in Tuscaloosa completely changes everything, and it just goes down the tubes. It's just it's crazy. Hats off to Alabama. They played an amazing second half and certainly deserved to win the game. So,
yeah. Well, and again, Tennessee's not what they were last year. They don't have the same firepower, right, offensively like they had a year ago. Case in point, second half, they only had 64 yards of total offense. So Alabama's defense just completely shut them down in the second half. And, here's Alabama, right? Everybody's ready to write them off after they lose to Texas. Now they are sitting here at 7-1 overall, 5-0 in the SEC West. They have a week off this week. Then they'll play LSU. And if they win that, they're in position to make their way back to Atlanta and potentially face Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Oh, you're already counting Georgia in for the SEC championship game.
Well, I don't know who's going to beat them in the East. I don't know that. I don't think they're as the same as they've been, and I think they'll really miss Brock Bowers for however long he's out, 4 or 5 weeks. But I don't know that there's anyone else on that side of the conference that's going to beat them.
No, they got a tough stretch coming. They've got
they have Florida this week, right?
They got Florida this week. That's right. Then they got Tennessee on the road. They got Missouri. So they're going to have to play, 4 straight games. I think they're maybe Kentucky. I can't remember who else they got, but not going to be easy. So, but I'm with you. They certainly, the odds are in their favor, no doubt about it. So, the odds were in favor of Oklahoma when UCF came to town there in Norman, but somehow Oklahoma managed to come back against was it the Black Knights? Is that their what's their?
Well, they're the Knights. No, they're the Golden Knights.
Golden Knights.
Army is the Black Knights.
That's right. Yes, the Golden Knights. And this John Reese Plumlee back from an injury, I think, right? 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, good for him. But Oklahoma got it done in the end.
Yeah, they did. Dylan Gabriel continues to play really well at quarterback, and Brent Venables, this is his second year. The defense, they had their issues in this game, and it's really a 2-point conversion away from being an overtime game. But they are playing better than they did a year ago. Dylan Gabriel, like I said, playing very well on offense. But John Rice Plumlee, he's a good player, man. He's kind of fun to watch. I remember covering him at Ole Miss, and when he was a quarterback at Ole Miss playing for Lane Kiffin, he wasn't much of a thrower then. He was a runner, very fast. He was also played baseball for the Ole Miss baseball team, and but he's done really well down at UCF. It's been a good fit for him with Gus Malzahn and the offense that Gus runs, and they almost pulled off a big upset. It's crazy because the 4 newcomers into the Big 12 are all struggling right now. I mean, they're like 2-17 against the incumbents. So I mean, you've got Cincinnati is having a tough time playing in the Big 12. UCF, Houston, who lost to Texas, which we'll talk about in a minute. The only one that won this past weekend was BYU. They beat Texas Tech, but as a group, they're finding it kind of tough sledding in a bigger conference in the Big 12.
Oh, absolutely. And Oklahoma, their defense has apparently been way better in the second half. They allowed just 39 points in the second half compared to 74 in the first half, which I think is very interesting. They let their opponents score some points, and they finally come alive in the second half there. Dylan Gabriel, 3 touchdowns, 253 yards. Solid as always. So we'll see Oklahoma. I think I'm interested to see Oklahoma and Oklahoma State coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Bedlam.
Yeah, Bedlam.
They call that game Bedlam.
That's right, Bedlam. So that'll be maybe tougher than what people thought it would have been early in the year. So, all right, you mentioned Texas and Houston. Let's go over that real quick. I don't know how many people saw Houston hanging into this game, but I thought Texas might lose this one. They ended up Texas won 31-24, close game. Quinn Ewers, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, but left the game in the third quarter. Houston quarterback Donovan Smith, a name that I didn't even know, 378 yards and 3 touchdowns on that Texas defense. Texas had a 21-0 lead, blew it, but was able to survive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scary game for Texas. They were able to find a way to win. Houston the week before won on a Hail Mary against West Virginia. So, they were kind of riding the momentum of that. And they come in here and, this is a game where, hey, they got nothing to lose playing the big boys, playing Texas, and they battled them. It was 24-24 in the fourth quarter. And then Texas was able to get over the hump and win the game. But pretty alarming, and concerning if you're a Texas fan, the extent of the injury to Quinn Ewers, because he's clearly playing at a high level. He's clearly the leader of your team. The AC joint sprain in his right shoulder, his throwing shoulder, that's not a good injury for a quarterback. If it's a different position, it's not as big a deal. If it's his left shoulder, it's not as big a deal, but it's his throwing shoulder, and it'll be curious to see how long that's going to put him on the shelf. Yeah.
I mean, any chance we see Arch Manning?
I don't know. I mean, I think there could be, unless they're planning to try to redshirt him, but you could even still play 4 games and still get your red shirt if they wanted to go that route. So I would think if Ewers is going to be out for an extended period of time, we might see Arch Manning. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's been an interesting time for the referees in college football, I've noticed. So before we move on to our tip of the cap, I've got a completely random selection of photos, and I want you to tell me if you think there's anything wrong in these pictures. Okay, hang on. I'm going to put on my referee hat.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Here's my referee hat. Okay. Do you see any foul in this photo right here?
Yeah, that would be offensive holding.
Yes, was not called by the referee, and that was a touchdown pass for Alabama. Okay. Yes, there was. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Yes. Okay. What do we see here in the end zone?
This would probably be constitute as defensive pass interference.
Yes. Not called. Pass interference. Okay. All right. Next photo. Okay. Do we see anything here?
This one is not as bad because there is a grab, but because the hands are on the inside, a lot of times linemen will get away with that one.
They get it all the time. It cracks me up. I'm like, when I played football back, we were taught to, of course I was a receiver, we were taught to block and pull back, because if you keep your hands up on the jersey anywhere, the referees will call it. Yeah, that's what they taught. Yeah, as a receiver, they say it's block, like don't keep your hands on the defensive back because they'll call holding on you.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that coaching technique, but I mean,
well, our coach wasn't very good, so that's probably why.
You are taught to get your hands, but keep them inside. As soon as the hands go outside the shoulders or the shoulder pad, that's when holding is always called. But typically, if they stay inside, you can get away with it.
I don't see how Tyler Barron is going to be able to get to the quarterback with someone grabbing him like that. But it's all right. It's a close one. Okay. Do we have another one?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Oh, what do we see here? I see a face mask.
Could be a face mask, but the ball carrier knee could be down also. So it may be after the fact. It doesn't look like he's grabbing the face mask, but the helmet is definitely turned. Okay.
True.
I don't know if he's actually grabbing the face mask as much as he's twisting the helmet.
Right. Probably trying to twist his head off.
Maybe. Yeah.
Probably. Okay. Is that all the photos we have, or we have any more? We have video. Look at that. All right, let's play it again. Play that one again. Watch closely. Look. What's this kick? This karate kick with both legs from the Alabama receiver. Look at that. Huh. Oh, where's the flag? No flag. All right. So here we go.
That could have been unsportsmanlike conduct.
Could have been. Not in Tuscaloosa. It's not in Tuscaloosa with Alabama. There are no flags. Alabama had 1 penalty all game. Tennessee had 8. Now,
one penalty the whole game?
The whole game, 1 penalty called on Alabama, and Tennessee had 8. And it's egregious. It's egregious, Todd Blackledge. This is now, all right, all the fans are going to complain about calls and the referees, but in this game, Tennessee was playing Alabama and the referees 100%. I believe it on this one. So what are we going to do about this? How do you fix this? Or do you just not? You just got to deal with it.
Yeah, I can't really comment on that. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's my attitude with penalties. Typically over the course of a game or over the course of a season, those things all tend to even out. That's the way I look at it. Now, that does seem pretty amazing that there would be 8 penalties against Tennessee and only 1 for Alabama. And somehow, I don't know how you were able to find all of those and isolate them.
That's our producer, Evan. He did that for us, but it's all over Twitter.
I'm sure. Yeah. But there's a case to be made, and I'm sure that's one of those things where Josh Heupel maybe puts those together and sends them to the SEC office, and unfortunately, all he'll get back is, yeah, you're right, we messed that one. Yeah, right. You're right. That should have been a penalty or whatever, because there's really no way to go back and correct it at this point.
I just wondering if
sour grapes for Tennessee fans like you right now.
That's right. Exactly. I was just wondering if those referees are on the same Alabama payroll as Gary Danielson when he's calling the game. You're friends with Gary. I know. It's okay.
I know.
He's a fine guy.
Why does everybody think he's such an Alabama homer?
He's a fine guy. He loves Bama.
He went to Purdue. I mean, he's not even from the South.
That's what's so shocking about it.
Yeah.
Or you tell him I said he needs to visit Knoxville, and we'll take him out and get some orange. Maybe we'll get him in those orange checkered overalls, and we'll make a Vols fan of him. At least maybe he can talk to the referees for us, do something about that. I don't know. All right, I'm taking my referee hat off.
Good.
Going back to the Chicago Bears. I just wear this hat because I feel sorry for them. They need somebody to support them. Well,
they won this weekend with a backup quarterback, right?
Yeah. They did, yeah.
Some guy from like Shepherd College in West Virginia is their starting quarterback now.
Nobody's never
even heard of Shepherd College.
No, I didn't know they had a college in Shepherd. Where's Shepherd?
It's in West Virginia.
Okay. You said that. Well, nobody probably ever goes there much. All right, so we're time for a segment. We're going to tip our cap to some teams. Yep. So here we go. Hats off.
You want me to go first?
We're going to go first. A tip of the cap to a team and a player. And you go first with your team, and then I'll go.
All right. My team this week is Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights. Greg Schiano, his second time back at Rutgers. Now Rutgers is in the Big Ten. It's a little bit tougher to get it done, but they won their 6th game this past weekend at Indiana, so they're bowl eligible. And they're not a bad team. I've seen them on film a couple times this year. Very solid. They can run the football, play good hard-nosed defense. And I'm glad they won this week because I don't know. They may not win any of their next 4 games because their last 4 games, they're off this week. Then they host Ohio State. Then they go to Iowa. Then they go to Penn State. And they finish with Maryland at home. So it'll be a very challenging final 4 games for the Scarlet Knights. but my hat's off to them getting bowl eligible this week and deservedly so.
Yeah, very cool. You remember that time Greg Schiano almost was the coach at the University of Tennessee?
Yeah. Yep. He's a good football coach. That was a funky situation.
That was wild.
Let's not go down that road.
Let's not. That's a whole segment. That's a whole nother podcast. All right. For my tip of the cap today for my team is Air Force. Air Force with their 17-6 win over Navy. I love watching our military service academies play each other. It's just fun. Air Force, one of our, I think they have the highest rushing attack in the country. Maybe they may be first in rushing in the country, if I'm not mistaken. Just love seeing them 7-0 and ranked. Yeah. It's just cool having them in the mix. I remember at times Navy in the past has been up there a little bit. Army, I don't know when we'll see Army up in ranked in the top 25 anytime soon, but it's cool to see Air Force with that win over their rival Navy and them being 7-0. Very cool to them. Tip of the hat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know what? Troy Calhoun's been there a long time. This is his best start. Now they did win 10 games the last 2 years. I mean, they're a good football program. Navy had a run back several years ago where they were kind of one of those teams that was winning that way. Army actually a couple of years ago had a very successful couple of years, and now here's Air Force, and if they keep it up, if they finish undefeated, they could possibly even make their way into a New Year's Six bowl game as the group of 5 representatives. So them being ranked right now and being undefeated is very cool to see. That's a big deal. All the Army and Navy guys hate to see it. I know my brother is a West Point graduate, so he is an Army guy, and I have to cheer for Army every time. But it's great to see Air Force get that win over Navy. Okay, well, your tip of the cap to a player. Who you got? Yeah. I mean, and I think probably if the fans out there are expecting it to be some random, very seldomly heard of guy, I'm not going to come through for you this time because I am tipping my cap to Marvin Harrison Jr., who is just clearly in my opinion, the best player in college football right now. Of any position. Quarterbacks have dominated the Heisman Trophy the last 20 years or 16 of the last 20 years. Devontae Smith won the Heisman as a wide receiver at Alabama a few years ago. Marvin Harrison is phenomenal. I mean, I just have not seen a guy like him. And like I said, for 2 years in a row, he totally took over the game against Penn State and was the best player on the field. And that was the case this past weekend. It's cool watching him play. He's dynamic. 11 catches and 100-something yards, touchdown. I mean, he's always going to perform. Love it. And let me say this too. And he did that Saturday against a really good defensive football team without the other starting wide receiver who was out for the game. Ibuka didn't even play. So everyone knew when when Ohio State needed a big play, the ball had to go to Marvin, and they targeted him 16 times. He was open just about all 16 times, but they were only able to hit him 11 times. But it was good for 162 yards and a touchdown. He's the one getting the ball, and you still can't stop it. Just like Michael Jordan. He's going to be the one taking the last shot. Right. But you still can't stop him from making it. Yeah, amazing. Okay, my tip of the cap this week is a player from Oklahoma State, running back Ollie Gordon II, as they demolished West Virginia, and a pretty solid win for them. And so, I didn't really know much about this guy. I was checking out the game and watching him play and was just really impressed. He had 282 rushing yards in this game and 4 touchdowns. Just a heck of a game for a guy that I had not heard of before. Ollie Gordon II, OG2, I think, what they're calling him. So congrats to him in Oklahoma State and a big win there over the Mountaineers of West Virginia. Yeah, nice little run that Mike Gundy's team's got going on right now. They were kind of written off as being done early in the year because they got off to a slow start. I think they've won maybe 4 games in a row now. So Oklahoma State playing some good football. Yeah, love Mike Gundy. We should bring that mullet back that he had there for a while. Yeah. It was big time. I'm a man. I'm 40, is what he said that time. So that's what I yelled at my kids all the time around the house. I'm like, I'm a man. I'm 40. And they're like, why are you walking around yelling this? I'm like, just want y'all to remember
who runs the house here. Okay, time for my Week 9 Top 25. Todd, as you see here, I released it just a day or so ago, and the world waits with anticipation every time I release this.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, so Georgia still number one. People are making a case for Michigan number one. It's a valid case, but until Georgia loses, I don't see how I'm going to move them at this point. Michigan, Ohio State with that big win, number 3 still for me, and then Florida State, Washington.
I think I would be in full agreement with that right there. Ohio State with another impressive win. Florida State's got a couple good wins out. That was a good win against Duke this past weekend because Duke is a good football team, and they took care of business. Washington had a squeaker, did not play all that well. Michael Penix Jr. didn't even have a touchdown pass. They won 15-7 against Arizona State, and their defense showed up. So, but it's kind of human nature to have a little bit of a letdown after the big win over Oregon the week before. And then after that, the only thing I would say in those next 5, like I told you earlier, I don't know that I could put Penn State as a top 10 team because of how anemic they looked offensively. I mean, you can't go 1 for 16 on third down and be a top 10 team. I mean, their defense is top 10 caliber, but their offense is far from it. So I would probably have them outside the top 10 after that performance.
Okay. Where would you have them? Like a 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there?
11, 12, 13. I mean, I think Oregon should be ranked ahead of them.
Okay.
I think Oregon was more impressive in their loss to Washington in Seattle than Penn State was in their loss to Ohio State. So
gotcha. Okay. What about Ole Miss at 11?
Maybe a little high for them.
Okay.
They do have a really good win over LSU, right? 55-49, I think it was.
Yeah.
They got hammered by Alabama, just kind of throttled like typically Nick does to Lane's teams. Yeah. But they're right there with just one loss. So they're still in the hunt for the SEC West. And we've talked about Utah already. They're a really solid team with one loss. So, once you get past 10, it's kind of hard. I mean, you could go a lot of different ways. I really think you did a pretty good job this week. I'm kind of with your 25. So
look at that. Okay, so the only
I don't know now. I would say this though. I don't know that I could have. I don't know that I could have Air Force and JMU over probably Duke, Florida, Tennessee, even UC, I mean, because I would look at it and say, okay, if those two teams played, who would win?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but
and you're right, and that's usually how I look at a lot of them. Is I look at I look at their losses, who they played, who would win in a head-to-head matchup, and that's how I did some of the things. That's kind of how I did Penn State. I actually thought Penn State would beat Oregon, Ole Miss, Utah in a head-to-head matchup. I may be wrong, but I think the JMU I probably ranked them too high, and Air Force as well. That's a good point. So I'm gonna have to think about that going forward. What about Florida? They deserve to be in there.
I think they're playing better. I think their quarterback Graham Mertz, who transferred from Wisconsin, is playing at a really high level, and they'll have a high-profile game this week against Georgia in Jacksonville. So that's a great rivalry game, and we'll see how they fare in that one.
Okay, so we talked about Michigan at 2, with Georgia at 1. So let's go ahead and we'll take top 25 now. Let's talk about Michigan a little bit. How are we feeling about Michigan and this controversy going on, this whole sign stealing thing? All right, that's what they're talking about. But my question to you is, isn't this happening with all teams? Aren't they all doing it, or is Michigan doing it just more blatantly? Like, we don't even care, we're just going to do it, and you guys will just have to deal with it. It's pretty wild. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, well, let me break it down for you what the problem is. So, sign stealing takes place. That's nothing new, and it's not uncommon, and it happens all over the place. Okay, and so people try to steal signs. Primarily, you try to steal offensive signals, to help your defense. And so you do that off of game films from previous games, television copies of games, or as the game is going on. You might have people in the booth watching to see if you can crack the code during the course of the game. That's not illegal. There's nothing illegal. You may think it's unethical, but it's not illegal. Okay.
Right.
And it's been going on, and it goes on all over the place. That's why so many teams, they don't stick with the same signals or the same process the whole season. They'll switch it every couple games, because they know people are trying to steal their signals. Mm-hmm. So you have to change it up. Okay, that's one thing. What Michigan is being accused of, and what they are alleging, and what their evidence is starting to come out in, is that they were doing in-person scouting, which is illegal by the NCAA. Okay. So used to be, that's how you scouted teams. You sent coaches and they went to watch. In basketball and football, you watched your opponents play games and you took notes and whatever. Well, in 1994, they did away with that, and they did away with the in-person scouting as a cost-saving measure, not for anything about sign stealing or anything like that. They did it because not every team had the kind of budget they could afford to send coaches to scout. So they said, look, you should be able to get all the information you need by exchanging game film or watching TV copies. So we're not going to allow you to send in-person scouting. So that's the first area that Michigan is accused of crossing the line. And then the other area is potentially the use of any kind of video or electronic device, recording device, to try to pick up the other team's signals. So both of those things are illegal, according to the NCAA. So, I don't know what's ultimately going to come of it. The NCAA typically is a very slow moving organization. So, if it's proven that Michigan did break these rules, then there should be some consequence. When that happens and to what extent that will be, I have no idea. But it certainly is a little bit of a cloud over them right now. I mean, they already, are kind of have the one situation with Jim Harbaugh on the NCAA that's not resolved yet either. That he sat out 3 games as a self-imposed penalty. So now this is another thing. And I made this point in our game on the air. Again, if they did something wrong and it's proven, they should have consequence. But I don't think that should detract in any way for how good this team is, how good J.J. McCarthy is, how good Blake Corum is, how deep their defensive line is, how fundamentally sound they are. They're the least penalized team in college football. I mean, they are really, really good. They don't turn the ball over. And so none of those things and none of those aspects of their team have anything to do with whether they've stolen signs or not.
Absolutely agree.
So I just hope that it doesn't detract from how good people realizing how good the team is. Could there be an unfair advantage that they would have gained had they gotten prior knowledge of signals? Potentially, yeah. But it still is.
It's still minimal, even at that.
I think so. But you can't, and Joshua Perry on our sideline or our studio show this past weekend, I thought he made a really great point. He said, you can't just break rules just because you think they're dumb,
Right. That's right.
And so
the rule's still there, and it's still illegal to do it. So you got to be held accountable.
Here's the crazy thing: is it probably isn't a good rule. It's probably bad, but there is a way to fix it. There is a way, and probably whatever comes of this will probably lead to the solution. And it's very simple. You just allow what the NFL has, which is coach to quarterback communication.
Yes.
And right now the hesitancy or the reluctance to do that is because it maybe is not cost effective or in the budget of all the schools in the FBS, all 133 schools. Right. So what? Just let the conferences or the top 64 FBS teams, the Power 5 conferences that can afford to do it, let them do it.
Absolutely. So I was going to add, as my next question was Matt Rule, coach at Nebraska, said the exact same thing. He's like, in the NFL, they have the earpieces. Give the quarterbacks the earpieces so they can communicate. That would solve a lot of this.
You give one to the quarterback, you give one to a guy on defense, and problem solved. Now you don't have to have the cards or the blankets or any of that. You don't have any of that stuff.
They got celebrities' faces up there. They got random mean, they all
Is your
kinds of.
face on a card? Is your face on a card?
No,
Have
I
you
haven't
seen
seen one. Is your face on a card?
No, mine's not.
Well,
Yeah,
not yet. I'm gonna make
you
sure
need
it
to talk to
happens.
Josh Heupel, and you should get one. Your face should be on a Tennessee flash card.
It really should be. You know,
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna get with him about that.
yeah,
I'd like for that to happen before they go to the earpieces because then I've got no shot.
yeah.
All
Or
right,
you could get your mullet character on an Alabama card too.
that'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be on an Alabama card unless unless I have to. Okay, it's good analysis, Todd, on that.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for going through that. A lot of people are
Yep.
probably confused about how that's going. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's briefly go through our upcoming games. We got a few that we picked out just to go over. You mentioned one earlier, which is Georgia and Florida down in Jacksonville, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah. I
Florida
don't
coming
think you're
in.
technically supposed to call it that anymore.
Oh, you're not?
But that's what it is. I mean, Georgia shuts down school for 2 days. I mean, so their students can go.
Yeah.
It's a total debacle. I've done the game several times. The game's great. The game is so cool because there's only 3 games left in college football that are unique like this, where the stadium is literally 50-50 divided between the crowd.
Yeah.
Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, and Army, Navy. Those are the only 3 games left in college football. And the energy is so high because one side is always really excited with how the game's going. So it's really a cool thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the college football power index model's got Georgia with an 85% chance of victory. That sounds about right, I would think. Florida 5-2 though, playing pretty well.
Yeah.
Do they have any chance of winning this game or at least even keeping it close?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, again, it's a rivalry game. I think they play up for this game.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned this earlier. I mean, Georgia being without Brock Bowers, there is no player more valuable to their team than Brock Bowers is to Georgia and their offense. And so you take him out of the equation, other guys are going to have to step up and make plays. And so it'll be interesting to see how well they play without him. So, I think it has a chance to be a pretty good game. It's funny, when I used to work for CBS and I did this game a bunch of times, and people used to ask Steve Spurrier, about this game, and he hated Georgia. For whatever reason, he loved putting it on them as much as he could. I think Ray Goff was the coach at Georgia during that time, and he just used to. And Florida was on top at that point, the fun and gun offense, and he. Somebody would ask him, say, is this an advantage for you guys playing this game? Do you feel like it's easier for you guys? He'd say, Jordan's got to fly. We just take a bus across the bridge there, and we play in a stadium called the Gator Bowl. So, it's kind of pretty good for the Gators,
That's a great Spurrier impression.
Thank you.
That's solid. That sounds just like him. Yeah, he's the old ball coach. Always
old ball coach. Yep.
Never fails to deliver some entertainment for everybody. Man, well, it'd be a good game. But I'd say Georgia's on upset alert. I mean, Florida, you never know what can happen in a game like this. So we'll see. All right, another game coming up here I think is interesting. Oregon at Utah. Big game out there in the Pac-12, man. They both have one loss. So a lot to play for in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah.
Oregon probably favored, I think by maybe 5.5. Going to be close. And you want to give a prediction on this? What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, wait a minute. Now we maybe need Evan to double check this because is that okay? The game is at Utah. That's right. It is in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
that's a tough place. That is a tough place to play. Now Oregon had to go to Washington and play, which is tough. And now they have to go to Salt Lake City. I mean, that's a loud, hard place to play. I think Oregon is better on offense. Utah maybe is a little better on defense. It's going to be a heck of a football game, and really for both of them, the winner is still right in great position, with one loss going forward towards the Pac-12 championship. The loser could be tough.
Absolutely. I don't even know who to pick for this one. When I do my picks every week, I may just flip a coin on this one. I think it's going to be close. You want to pick it? You got any?
Well, yeah, I'll pick it. I'm going to pick Oregon because, again, I mean, in a game like this, I'm going to go with the team that's got the most experienced quarterback. And even though Bryson Barnes played really well last week for Utah, Bo Nix is starting like his 127th game as a college football quarterback. I mean, and he's playing great. I mean, he's had a great season. They had a week off. So I'm going with Bo Nix and the Oregon offense in this.
I'm with you. I'm picking Oregon as well. And Bo Nix is a very experienced starting quarterback. I think you and Bo played together, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, good deal. All right, we'll go with Oregon on that one here on the Man in Black podcast. Thanks for listening and watching, folks. We are moving through here. Duke at Louisville. Woo! Louisville's won the last 3 games against Duke, but this is a different Duke team. Yeah. Strong defense. They can run the ball well. Louisville, I think, is the favorite in this, but and it's a home game for Louisville. Do you think Duke go to Louisville and get this done?
Well, here's the thing. There's the old they use this saying in basketball also. Defense travels, right? So you can't always guarantee how you're going to be on offense or how well you'll shoot the ball or how well you'll throw it in football. But if you play good defense, that shows up everywhere. Duke plays good defense, so I think they can go up there and win again. If Riley Leonard, who played last week, if he's even healthier and is good to go. I kind of think Duke's a more complete team than Louisville, even though Louisville got off to a great undefeated start. I think Duke might be able to go in there and take the win.
Yeah, I agree. I think Duke does win this game. I think Louisville is a great team. They're undefeated. They had that win over Notre Dame.
Yep.
Yeah, big win there. But other than that, a lot of their opponents not near as strong as Duke or Notre Dame. So I think Duke gets it done. But it'll be fun to watch. I hope Riley Leonard does play. I like that. Good kid. Okay, BYU at Texas. I wanted us to do this one because I feel like BYU are they kind of this team to look out for with Texas? I mean, they're 5-2. They're playing well. They have a small chance. The index gives them a 5% chance to beat Texas on the road, but they have a history of pulling some pretty big upsets. So.
They do.
What do you think?
They do, and again, Texas is playing without Quinn Ewers, which will change the equation a little bit, right? I already mentioned, the BYU is one of the 4 new teams in the Big 12. None of them have really fared all that well when they've played the incumbent teams. BYU did get a win against Texas Tech last week, but Texas is a different animal. Texas is loaded on both sides of the ball. And I think at home, even without Quinn Ewers, I think Texas will find a way to win. Plus, they didn't play all that well last week. They kind of toyed around with Houston. So this is a week where Steve Sarkisian can really get after them and say, hey, look, we can't fool around with teams like that. Teams we're supposed to win, where we're the better team, we need to take care of business. So I would expect to see a more determined and focused effort by Texas this week.
Yeah, good. I think so. I think Texas, they're just too good on defense. I love their running back as well. Jonathan, what's his last name? I forgot his last name. Texas running back's really good though. I think he's done. Whoever he is, he's good. Okay, Oklahoma at Kansas. Kansas, they're not ranked anymore, I don't think, but they still are a good team. Oklahoma is a clear favorite here. I think they're 19-point favorites maybe, but they were also favorites against UCF and almost lost that game at home. So Oklahoma at Kansas, I feel like Oklahoma is going to get it done. I think they're still too good to lose this game, but they're going to Kansas. You got any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, my gut says Oklahoma, but I'll tell you what, there's nobody that's done a better coaching job. We talk about Mike Elko at Duke, but Lance Leopold at Kansas has done a phenomenal job. And, they've kind of been without their quarterback from time to time this year. They're still very competitive. They have a different belief in their ability to win at Kansas now because of Lance Leopold. But I do think Oklahoma's got a little bit too much for him.
Yeah, I agree. Lance Leopold, that's a 16th century king of France, wasn't it? Lance Leopold?
Yeah, that was right before he took the head job at Buffalo. He came from Buffalo.
Okay. So then the King of France was before that. Okay, good deal. Good. It'll be a good matchup there. All right, we'll do one more here. For me, Tennessee at Kentucky. We'd love to know can Tennessee go up there to Kroger Field? It ought to be Dollar General Field, but can they go up there to Kroger Field and beat the Kentucky Wildcats, who have a pretty strong rushing attack? But Tennessee comes in with a strong defense, fifth in the nation in sacks. You know, can they get it done on the road?
Tough ball game. Tough ball game. The last time,
Yeah.
I think Kentucky might have had the week off this past week.
They did.
Right.
Yep.
So that comes right on the heels of losing to Missouri, right?
Yeah, that's right. Lost to Missouri and then 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what, I know you're not going to like this, but I'm going to take the Wildcats in this one.
Yeah.
I think Mark Stoops will have those guys rocking and rolling and ready to go. And, you know, I don't think Tennessee will have any lingering hangover from the loss to Alabama. You know, but I think that Kentucky will be a difficult place for them to go in and get a W as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be tough. I'm going to pick the Vols, but I think they get it done. But it's going to be tough. It could go either way. It was last year's game was fun. If you're a Tennessee fan, it was a lot of fun. But it's a different game this year.
I can remember just a real quick side story. My dad used to coach at University of Kentucky back in the mid to late 70s. And I was a ball boy on the sideline. You know, I was in junior high school. And I can remember, watching Condridge Holloway play quarterback for Tennessee against Kentucky. I went to the game in Lexington. I remember going down to the game in Knoxville also. And, you know, he was a fun guy to watch play the quarterback position. So
he was, yeah. Amazing story with Condridge there. All right, so that's all the games we're picking, but I'm excited for this new segment that I just thrown at you out of nowhere called Would You Rather. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions of would you rather do or have this or do or have this, all related to college football. Okay. All right. So first question, would you rather have a 4th and goal for a touchdown to win the game or a 50-yard field goal to win the game? No time left. This is the last play of the game. Would you rather have 4th and goal, you got to score a touchdown, or have a 50-yard field goal to win the game?
100% every time, every day of the week, 4th and goal for a TD. I don't ever want to put the game in the hands of a kicker. I love having a good kicker, but my history tells me that most kickers and punters are kind of weirdos. I mean, they're just different. They're different. I mean, nowadays, almost every punter's from Australia, and most of the kickers are former soccer players. So they're in a lot of ways, they're not really real football players. So my whole thing has been, and this really gets reiterated to me as I'm watching the baseball playoffs, I think kickers and punters should have to be in a bullpen and not allowed on the sideline with the rest of the team. They should be in a bullpen so they don't infect the real football players, because they don't practice the same way, they don't have meetings the same way. Keep them in a bullpen. Get on the phone and call when you need one.
That's right.
Run out on the field when you need them.
I love it.
4th and goal for me. Kickers and punters into the bullpen.
You guys we'll let you know when you're needed.
When we need you,
don't call us.
But stay away from the real players.
Yeah, look at these Australian punters. That leads to a bigger question. We've got all these Australians coming over here taking American jobs away from good American punters that could be doing some work.
Yeah. And they're all old too. They're like 27, 28 years old. They train at pro kick, and they come over here, and they got tattoos and beards and gray hair, and they just come over and play college football. So
weirdos. Yeah, just stick to soccer. All right, rugby or whatever they're doing over there. Tennessee used to be known as Punter University at one point. That's not. I don't think that's not a compliment in my opinion. You have great punters because you have to punt so much. Great.
Like Iowa. Iowa has the best punter. He's not from Australia either. He's just the best punter in college football because he gets so much work.
Yeah. What a great job, though. An NFL punter. You got very little pressure. You're making good money. You're needed a handful of times a game. You're never going to get hurt, probably. You don't have to hit anybody. I mean, pretty good gig. Okay. Second, would you rather? Would you rather have Michael Penix Jr. or Jaden Daniels at quarterback? You're coaching.
Wow.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Okay, so here's what I would say. If I could have the receivers that Michael Penix Jr. is throwing to right now, I would rather have him, because I think their offense and what Kalen DeBoer is doing with them as the head coach is pretty special. If I don't get the wide receivers, then give me Jaden Daniels, because I think as a dual threat guy, he is tearing it up, and LSU's got 2 losses. So, there's a chance that he's really not going to be a legitimate Heisman candidate, but you'd be hard pressed to find anybody playing better than him right now as a thrower and a runner. Last year, he was a great runner and an okay thrower. This year, he's really passing the ball well too. So
yeah,
he's fun to watch.
He is fun to watch. If you're building a team from the ground up, and if you can have Michael Penix, who's a senior, redshirt senior, or super senior, I guess, isn't he? He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels is a little bit younger. You get some of that experience, but the talent from Jaden Daniels is blowing my mind. Last year I wasn't overly impressed, but he got better as the year went on. This year he's just exploded, and it's been fun to watch. Been fun to watch. Okay, last one here. Would you rather have Oregon's offense or Michigan's defense? You can only have one. Oregon's offense, which means then if you got Oregon's offense, we're assuming you have a bad defense. If you have Michigan's defense, we're assuming you have a bad offense. So if you have to have one or the other win the game for you, would you rather Oregon's offense or Michigan's defense? Defense travels, is I've heard from a guy before.
Defense travels. Defense travels, and for years and years, you had to play defense to win national championships. But that is not necessarily the case anymore. You have to score points in college football now.
Yep.
So if you're posing it as Oregon's got a great offense and not a great defense, and Michigan's got a great defense and not a very good offense, I've kind of seen how that plays out with Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather take my chance with a great offense and score points. So I'll take Oregon's offense, even though I think Michigan's defense is ridiculously good.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I go with the offense. That would be my pick as well. I think that's you got to score points to win. That's at the end of the game, whoever scores the most points wins the game. That's the basic way to put it, I guess. All right, so that was fun. Now it's time for questions with Todd. Ask Todd.
It's time to ask Todd.
I don't even know the name of my own segment. It's called Ask Todd. Okay. So this is social media questions. If you have questions for Todd or me, feel free to send them to us, and we may or may not go with them. So this is from Rustin. Which 4 teams do you predict will make the college football playoff at this point in the season? If you had to pick right now, who makes the college football playoffs?
Right now, I would say Michigan.
Okay.
And I would say Florida State. And I would say I need to see Georgia play without Brock Bowers here for a little bit. I would probably say Georgia. And just for the heck of it, let's throw in there Oregon.
Okay. Solid. Look, that's a Pac-12 champion right there. You're thinking Oregon.
I'm kind of pulling for that since this is the last year of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a Pac-12 representative in the college football playoff before the conference goes away. So I'm kind of pulling for that. And I think at this point, USC's out. Utah is good. Washington is good. Washington already beat Oregon, but I kind of think Oregon, when it's all said and done, might be the better team.
Maybe so. Can we go ahead and write in and say that the SEC champion, the Big Ten champion, and the Pac-12 champion are all 3 going to be in there, even if that SEC champion is Alabama or
if they have
LSU?
one loss and they win, if Alabama has one loss and wins the SEC championship game, then they will be in. Yeah, they will be in. Okay.
How many Big Ten teams can get into this playoff?
Well, they got 2 in last year, and there's conceivable it could do that again this year. The problem is you've got a solid option potentially in the Pac-12, and with Florida State, you have a very solid option out of the ACC. So last year that wasn't really the case, and so that's why 2 Big Ten teams were able to get in and 2 SEC teams the year before. The way it is right now, it might be tougher to get a second team from one of those conferences in, because the Pac-12 has been pretty good and Florida State's been very good.
Yeah, good analysis. I love it. Okay, last question here is from Ginger. She asks, have you ever found it difficult to remain neutral while calling a game? Have you ever wanted to say, this team is terrible, and had to restrain from saying it? I would imagine that's a yes. Is it tough to remain neutral, though, when you're calling a game?
No, it's not. I mean, I've been removed far enough from it. I mean, I went to Penn State, and I love Penn State. I'm proud to have been a player there. But, I mean, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for 30 years. So, if anything, I'm going to err on the other side of not showing any favoritism to Penn State when I do a game. So I try to remain as neutral as possible, even if I have friends on the coaching staff of particular teams. I'm going to call it straight down the middle. I'm going to try to be as positive as I can for both sides. By the same token, I'm going to try to be honest and give my opinion in a real way, just not in a way that tears people down. So, have I ever wanted to say this team is terrible? Yeah, I've felt that before, but I would never say that because, my dad was a coach. I know how hard it is to coach. I was a player who had ups and downs. I know how hard it is in the heat of the moment to play. So, I'll give my opinion if something's not going well, but I'm not going to do it in a way that is really derogatory.
Sure. I love that. And I think I'm always amazed by the armchair quarterbacks and armchair coaches who are like, oh, this quarterback is garbage. He's terrible. Yeah. No quarterback playing Division I football is garbage or terrible. I don't care who it is. Even if, I mean, they're all good. The coaches are good. That's why they're there. So, yeah, it's just people's emotions. I know, but being a broadcaster, yeah, that's why you're one of the best in the business. You keep it neutral. And I'm not neutral with Tennessee. I'm a clear Tennessee fan. I tell people I'm a Tennessee fan, and I pick Tennessee for most every game. Just because I'm connected there, I don't want them to be mad at me for not picking them.
If I didn't know that before, when you brought up the random photos today, that kind of convinced me of where your loyalties truly are.
That's right. But in every other game, obviously neutral, got no dog in the fight there. But that reminds me, you said, if anything, you're almost harder on the team that you would pull for. It reminds me of my dad and me. Like, I remember when I was a kid playing Little League baseball, and that one of the umpires didn't show up. The first base umpire didn't show up, so they pulled a dad from the stands. It was my dad, and I hit a base hit and came to first, clearly beat out the throw. It wasn't even close, and he called me out because I think he was afraid of showing favoritism towards his son, even though everyone knew that I was safe. But he called me out, and I was so ticked about it. So,
did you cry? Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry. I'm not a crier. I don't cry. I don't cry. No. I don't cry.
There's no crying in baseball.
No crying in baseball. Tom Hanks. Yeah, great stuff. What a great episode we had here today. Thanks to everyone for listening and watching. And make sure you check it out. Make sure you're following Todd Blackledge on Twitter. That's where his main action takes place. And you can follow me on all the other channels. And make sure you're listening, subscribing. We're trying to get more viewers and build this thing up, having a good time talking college football. Todd, you got any last thoughts for the weekend before we go?
No, just really looking forward to my game this week. Madison, Wisconsin. Camp Randall Stadium is a great atmosphere. The jump around the end of the third quarter, and Halloween weekend at a party school, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild up there this weekend.
All right. If you guys see Todd Blackledge wandering the streets of Madison, Wisconsin Saturday night.
No, I'll be locked in, man.
Oh, good times. Have a great time in Madison. I'm heading down to Florida for a speaking engagement, and then I'll be back in time to watch Tennessee take on Kentucky. So cheers to you, my friend.
All right, my man. Talk to you next week.